Should have known the difficulties. So that I should have known the difficulties in writing the dissertation which they face. But what to do? You are alone. Nobody there. Anyway, first of all, I want to acquaint you with one interesting literature in philosophy. You see how original, how smooth, how simple is the thinking which is embodied in form of a dialogue. The text is three dialogues between Hylas and Philonos. Three dialogues between Hylas and Philonos, and the author is George Berkeley. This is a piece of writing of the 18th century, published in 1734. One will just wonder what this writing of more than 250 years old would pay us if we read it now. How would it be relevant? I want to make it clear that philosophical views are never dead. There is a physicist, Hawking, who used to say that philosophy is dead. Philosophy is dead. Of course, later on, he realized that it was a fault on his part to say so. He rather warned the world what the physical science is going to do in the near future, what havoc it will bring in near future. So I meant to say that philosophical views are never dead. They are rather sidetracked by people who are ignoramus. They sidetrack it. Might be not having a test for it, not having a test for abstract things, or perhaps they are so steeped in scientific knowledge, an ordinary state of affairs, that they do not have time for philosophical thinking, or they do not have time to spend in going through philosophical thinking. Even if they do not think themselves, they do not want to go through others' writings, how others have thought, and have something, glean something from there for their own development. Bertrand Russell, you must have heard his name. I have mentioned him during my classes. Bertrand Russell once said that people do not think for 1 minute, even in 6 months. 6 মাসের মিনিটে মধ্যে চিন্তন করতে নাই। Chinta is going on all the time. If thinking ceases to be, then human being ceases to be. As you know, Descartes says, I think therefore I am. So thinking is my being. Thinking does not cease, but thinking fruitfully, thinking philosophically, thinking with a purpose, that is not available. That is available, say, for 1 minute in 6 months. I always tell my students that even if you do not find to think with a purpose, in weekdays because you are so busy, you are joining the rat race, so to say. You are on your toes from morning till evening. You will have some thinking or force to think. You would be led to think during Sundays and holidays. Hello, Loki and Omyakanta. Welcome. Loki is coming for the first time, I think. Anyway, this is a dialogue, as I said, between Hylas and Philonos. Philonos is a philosopher, as the title indicates. Hylas is the materialist, the common man. Hyle in Greek means Hyle. Hyle means matter. So Hylas stands for the materialist person, might be materialistically minded common man or even a scientist. And Philonos is one who takes things to abstract height and engages in critical thinking on the ideas and concepts available in common sense and in science. I will read only some portion of the dialogue to give you a taste of it. Philonos says, "Good morning, Hylas. I did not expect to find you out and about so early." ଗୋଟେ ଗୋଟେ ସକାଳେ ଭେଟ ହେଇଯାଇଛି ଦି ଜଣଙ୍କର ପାର୍କରେ ଭେଟ. Hylas, it is indeed somewhat unusual, but my thoughts were so taken up with a subject I was talking about last night that I could not sleep. I decided to get up and walk in the garden. Hylas, you see, I was telling you that philosophical thinking does not torment us, does not disturb us every day. But sometimes it comes perforce to the mind. And Hylas was taken over by such a question. Philonos responds, "That's good. It gives you a chance to see what innocent and agreeable pleasures you lose every morning. What innocent and agreeable pleasures you lose every morning. Can there be a particular time of the day or a more delightful season of the year? That purple sky, those wild but sweet notes of birds, the fragrant bloom on the trees and flowers, the gentle influence of the rising sun, these and 1,000 nameless beauties of nature inspire the soul with secret raptures." Ananda. But I am afraid I am interrupting your thoughts, for you seemed very intent on something. You see, generally, philosophers are said to be dry and insipid people. They are not interested in rangarasas of the world. But you see here how Philonos describes nature as sweet in so many ways. He says that this is the beauty of nature. You must enjoy yourself in the morning, but you are losing so much of pleasure and you get disturbed by some thinking. What is that thinking? Asks Hylas. Yes, I was. And I would be grateful if you would allow me to carry on with it. But I don't in the least want to deprive myself of your company. For my thoughts always flow more easily in conversation with a friend than when I am alone. Please, may I share with you the thoughts I have been having? You will be noticing many things at once. How simple and how possessive prose a philosopher writes, style of writing, style of conveying one's ideas. And the ideas, of course, are important ideas, how they are conveyed. Both the things you notice. Then Philonos, with all my heart, it is what I would have requested myself if you did not ask first. ତମେ ଯଦି ନ ପଚାରିଥାନ୍ତ ମୁଁ ତ ପଚାରିଥାନ୍ତି ଯେ କଣ ଭାବନାଟା କହ. Hylas, I was considering the odd fate of those men who have in all ages, through a desire to mark themselves off from the common people, or through heaven knows what trick of their thought, claimed either to believe nothing at all or to believe the most extravagant things in the world. You see how the topic is introduced. Here, let me anticipate what is going to be discussed. They are going to discuss the concept of matter. The concept of matter means the concept of material substance, whether there is material substance or not. Descartes, you will remember, synthesized science, religion, and ethics by taking up just one concept, that is the concept of substance. So that is the legacy of past philosophy, the philosophy of the rationalists. For them, the category of substance is a must to understand science, to understand religion, and to understand ethics. But here is an empiricist philosopher, George Berkeley, who wants to do a critique on the concept of substance. He would maintain that there is no permanent concept of substance. There is no abiding concept of substance. What we experience are only qualities. That he is going to say. So you see, this would not matter so much if their paradoxes and skepticism did not bring consequences that are bad for mankind in general. You see, philosophy does affect mankind. So the presuppositions which the common men and the scientists nurture in their minds in advocating the view about the world they hold have bad consequences. They involve dilemmas, paradoxes, skepticism. So that will not, when some thought involves paradoxes. Paradoxes means this must be and this must not be. From some point of view, something must be the case. And again, if you admit that and work out the consequences, you will find that this must not exist, must exist and must not exist. That is a paradox. Then skepticism, doubts. If these things infect the thought of man, then action would not be possible. If action is possible, then that will not be action in the right way. So all actions, all wrong decisions and all wrong actions will follow from thoughts which suffer from paradoxes, which suffer from skepticism. That is it. That is the importance of philosophy. You see, many things, when you read a philosophical book, many things you will find if you read it so attentively. Research means that. But search means just going through superficially for examination purpose or some interview purposes. But when you do research, you must read it intensely and very seriously. What are the ideas are involved there, and how does a particular thinker takes us from one point to another? So, but there is a risk that they will do that. And that when men who are thought to have spent their whole time in the pursuit of knowledge claim to be entirely ignorant of everything or advocate views that are in conflict with plain and commonly accepted principles, this will tempt other people who have less leisure for this sort of thing to become suspicious of the most important truths once they had previously thought to be sacred and unquestionable. So all persons do not have the same amount of leisure. I told you previously that any pursuit needs leisure, your time. And philosophy being about the infinite, it needs infinite time, infinite leisure. ରାଧାକ୍ରିଷ୍ଣନ ତାଙ୍କର ଇଣ୍ଡିଆନ ଫିଲୋସଫି ଭଲ୍ୟୁମ୍ 1 ରେ ଆରମ୍ଭରେ ଲେଖିଛନ୍ତି ଯେ in order to philosophize, infinite leisure is required, and in ancient India, the rishis, the saints, had infinite leisure to think about things. Unless infinite leisure is there, you cannot when you are running on your toes for this and that, and do not have time, you cannot have philosophical thinking. So Philonos responds, I entirely agree with you about the bad effects of the paraded doubts of some philosophers and the fantastical views of others. I have felt this so strangely in recent times that I have dropped some of the high-flown theories I had learned in their universities, replacing them with ordinary common opinions. Since this revolt of mine against metaphysical notions and in favor of the plain dictates of nature and common sense, I swear that I find I can think ever so much better, so that I can now easily understand many things which previously were mysteries and riddles. So previous philosophical positions were full of mysteries and riddles. Therefore, I have decided not to contribute, not to own their views, which are metaphysical and which are riddlesome, which disturb the living of our lives. So I would rather think in a way which would be compatible with common sense and our common ways of living. Hylas says, Hylas means the materialist who is in conversation with the philosopher Philonos. Hylas, I am glad to find there is nothing in the accounts I had of you. Philonos, what if you please, were they? What are they? Hylas, in last night's conversation, you were represented as someone who maintains the most extravagant opinion that ever entered into the mind of man, namely that there is no such thing as material substance in the world. So philosopher Berkeley maintains that there is no material substance in the world. Hylas, who is representing Berkeley, says, I'm sorry, Hylas, who represents the common man, who is in conversation with the philosopher, says that people say that you are maintaining such a view that there are no material substances in the world. That is most extravagant opinion it appears to be. What is that? So he was disturbed from last night, as per his report, with this view. Which view? There are no material substances in the world. Philonos replies, I seriously believe that there is no such thing as what philosophers call material substance. But if I were made to see anything absurd or skeptical in this, then I would have the same reason to renounce this belief as I think I have now to reject the contrary opinion. So I have reasons to reject the opinion that there are material substances. If I would have the reasons to reject the view that there is no material substance, then I will do that. So you see, the philosopher is always guided by reason. The philosopher is always guided by logic. So he is free to go and he is free and he is agreed to go wherever logic leads him. So that is the open mindedness of the philosopher. He would not argue against logic. Whatever he says, he provides a logic or he provides arguments for what he says. So then, Hyla says, what can anything be more fantastical, more in conflict with common sense, or more obvious piece of skepticism than to believe there is no such thing as matter? The common man, represented by Hylas, Hylas says that what fantastic opinion is this that you are maintaining? It is repugnant to common sense. It is opposed to common sense. Common sense believes that there are material things in the universe, and you say there is no material substance in the world. Philonos says, steady on, Hylas, ahista, steady on. What if it were to turn out that you who hold that there is matter are by virtue of that opinion a greater skeptic and maintain more paradoxes and conflicts with common sense than I who believe no such thing? Mark. So in a very few lines, the problematic is posed. You say that my view that there is no material substance in the world involves skepticism, involves paradoxes, but you maintain that there are material substances in the world. If I would show that your view involves skepticism and paradoxes to a higher degree, then what will happen? Hyla says, you have as good a chance of convincing me that the part is greater than the whole as of convincing me that I must give up my belief in matter if I am to avoid absurdity and skepticism. ତମେ ଯଦି କହିବ ସୂର୍ଯ୍ୟ ପଶ୍ଚିମ ଦିଗରେ ଉଦୟ ହେଉଛି ସେ ଯେମିତିଆ କଥା, ତମେ ଯଦି କହିବ ମ୍ୟାଟର ନାହିଁ ୟୁନିଭର୍ସରେ ସେ ସେମିତିଆ କଥା, ମତେ ତମେ କଣ କନଭିନ୍ସ କରିବ? ତ ଥିଙ୍ଗସ୍ ଆର୍ ଲାଇକ୍ ଦ୍ୟାଟ୍. Well then, are you content to accept as true any opinion that turns out to be the most agreeable to common sense and most remote from skepticism? Are you agreed? Are you agreed to go by the logic which would prove that that there is no material substance in the world is more agreeable to common sense and free from skepticism? Hylas says, with all my heart, yes, I will do. Since you want to start arguments about the plainest things in the world, I am content for once to hear what you have to say. Philonos, tell me, please, Hylas, what do you mean by a skeptic? So, this is how the critical faculty of thinking runs. writing a thesis, we pose the problematic. As the problematic is posed here, then comes the definition of certain terms. What do you mean by skeptic? Philonos asks. Hyla says, I mean what everyone means. Skeptic is someone who doubts everything. Skeptic is someone who doubts everything. Philonos says. So if someone has no doubts concerning some particular point, then with regard to that point, he cannot be thought to be a skeptic. I agree with you. Hyla says. Philonos. Does doubting consist in accepting the affirmative or the negative side of a question? Here actually two persons are not there. Berkeley is imagining that there is a party, opposite party, who would ask such questions. So if he asks such questions, what would be my reply? So always there is a Purva Paksha and a Para Paksha. Purva Paksha is here Hylas and Uttara Paksha, not Para Paksha, that is Uttara Paksha. Uttara Paksha is Philonos. Uh, does doubting consist in accepting the affirmative or the negative side of a question? Hylas. Neither. Anyone who understands English must know that doubting signifies a suspense between the two sides. Philonos. So if someone denies any point, he can no more be said to doubt concerning it than he who affirms it with the same degree of assurance. True? Philonos. And so his denial no more makes him a skeptic than the other is. I acknowledge it. Philonos. Then how does it happen, Hylas, that you call me a skeptic because I deny what you affirm, namely the existence of matter? For all you know, I may be as firmly convinced in my denial as you are in your affirmation. Hylas. Hold on a moment, Philonos. My definition of skeptic was wrong. But you cannot hold a man every false step he makes in conversation. I did say that a skeptic is someone who doubts everything. But I should have added, skeptic is someone who doubts everything or who denies the reality and truth of things. ଏତକ ମୋର ଆଡ୍ କରିବା ଉଚିତ ଥିଲା ବୋଲି Philonos କହୁଛନ୍ତି, Hylas କହୁଛନ୍ତି. Philonos, what things do you mean? The principles and the theorems of sciences? But these, you know, are universal intellectual notions and have nothing to do with matter. So that the denial of matter does not imply the denial of them. So denial of matter and the principles, he means to say the Newtonian principles, laws of motion. A thing continues in a state of rest or in a state of motion unless it comes in contact with another thing. Like this is number one, Newton's principles of motion. So even if you deny the existence of material substance in the world, you are not denying those principles. Those principles are different things. They are not found in the world. Material substance is found or not found in the world. The Purva would argue that they are there in the world, and the Uttara would argue that it is not there in the world. What is there in the world are only qualities of things, sensible qualities, no material substance. Hylas says, I agree about that, but what about other things? What do you think about distrusting the senses, denying the real existence of sensible things, or claiming to know nothing of them. Is not that enough to qualify a man as a skeptic? Philonos. Well, then let us see which of us it is that denies the reality of sensible things or claims to have the greatest ignorance of them. Since, if I understand you rightly, he is to be counted the greater skeptic. That is what I desire, Hylas says. Philonos says. What do you mean by sensible things? You see how concepts are being analyzed uh, to finer and finer degrees. What do you mean by sensible things? Hylas says, things that are perceived by the senses. Can you imagine that I mean anything else? Philonos, I'm sorry, but it may greatly shorten our enquiry if I have a clear grasp of your notions. You see, methodology, mark the methodology. If things are clear, then the path of our finding the truth becomes shorter. If things are not clear, we will consume more time, more energy to get at the conclusion. So it may greatly shorten our inquiry, shorten, shorten, shorten our inquiry if I have a clear grasp of your notions. Bear with me then while I ask you this further question. Are things perceived by the senses only the ones that are perceived immediately? Please see the analysis. Are things perceived by the senses only the ones that are perceived immediately, or do they include things that are perceived immediately? That is through the intervention of something else. Hylas, I did not properly understand you. So a technical term is introduced, perceiving immediately or perceiving immediately. This becomes unclear to the common man, Hylas, and he asks, I do not properly understand you, please explain it to me. Philonos explains, in reading a book, what I immediately perceive are the letters on the page, but immediately or by means of these, the notions of God, virtue, truth, etc., are suggested to my mind. So, what I immediately perceive are the letters from A to Z. So then I immediately come to grapple with the notions of God. If it is a discussion about God, if it is a discussion about virtue, if it is a discussion about truth, then only I perceive them immediately. Immediately, only the letters. Now, there is no doubt that the letters are truly sensible things or things perceived by sense. But I want to know whether you take the things suggested by them to be perceived by sense also. Ask Hylas to say, uh, do you mean to say that you perceive God, virtue, truth directly when you read a book? The reply should be no, it is not so. You are correct in saying that what we immediately perceive are letters, not God, virtue, and freedom or truth. Then Hylas says, no, certainly it would be absurd to think that God or virtue are sensible things, though they may be signified and suggested to the mind by sensible marks with which they have an arbitrary connection. They have an arbitrary connection. Are you following, Amarish?
Yeah, what I have understood is that Hylas is arguing for his saying there is the physicalness in existence and it should not be denied, but Philonos is questioning his this assertion of his, and they are going deeper and deeper to
Hmm.
understand what it means to
Suppose there is a table. Suppose there is a table.
hmm.
Uh, Hylas is trying to say that apart from the qualities of the table, like a hardness, color, etc., there is something called a table which holds these qualities together. That is the material substance. But Berkeley, in the form of Philonos, is going to argue that the sensible qualities which we directly perceive are all that is there in the world, not any material substance which you postulate that is only metaphysical, that is only besides and beyond what you immediately perceive. That is the gist of the argument.
so
And the
so is is
argument goes
Philonas
on.
is Philonas like an idealist in that sense?
You are correct. He is an idealist. And again, I would like to say that um, in history of philosophy and in introduction to philosophy books, Berkeley is pictured as an idealist. But in the history of philosophy, when we go to Plato, we find that idealism has a different meaning. Uh, so Berkeley is regarded as an idealist, not idealist. So Ambaris, I'm sorry to discontinue.
Okay.
Hmm. So this is the hazard of being present at home doing a class online.
Okay.
Somebody came,
Uh-huh.
therefore. And I had to drive him away. A guest came, but I had to drive him out. So,
Okay.
so you see, an important point he has just made here. It is an arbitrary connection. What with what? Arbitrary connection of words with things. God, truth, virtue, these are words. But what they stand for, they stand for not naturally, but they are said to stand for. We have made those words to stand for such and such things. So it is human convention. It is an arbitrary decision of human beings that according to which we use particular words to mean particular things. But the point was you are saying that Berkeley is an idealist. Berkeley is said to be an ideaist. IDEA hyphen IST. Because he does not like Plato say
You have joined the call. There are three other people in the call. Involving your microphone is on.
Just wait, sir will join. Sir has some little problem. Sir is trying to join very soon.
Okay.
Alert. Webcast invisible. Use window switcher to bonus.
Can we have your contact number also?
Send a WhatsApp message to ML please.
This call is open. This call is being. This call is open to any visitor indicator. Meet that app. Meet that app. Meet that app. Visitor into this call is open. This call is the ambush. Is on. Classroom to our meeting. Cancel the answer. Classroom to our master of arts. Left. Turn off mic. Turn off. Turn off. Set the reaction toggle button. Relax. Present now button.
Hello.
Hello,
But
sir.
hello.
Yes, sir.
Oh, I am so sorry. Some technical glitch occurred, which
Okay.
I did not experience for the last 7 days. Okay. So I was telling you that idealist and ideaist, they are two different things. Plato is said to be an idealist because according to him, ideas with I capital IDEAS, ideas of which particular things of the world are copies. They are perfect things. A perfect table, a perfect beauty, and a perfect man. These are the ideas, and they exist in a different world, in a transcendent world, in a metaphysical world,
Voldy. Your microphone is on.
along with the world in which we live, move, and have our being. So that is a two world theory, Plato's. And the ideas are the perfect existences and they are the ideals of existence. So, for example, a round, when we have some round things, There is some defect here or some defect there. But that which is perfectly round does not have any defect. It is perfectly round. So that exists in a different world, that is called the world of ideas. But coming to Berkeley, we do not have such a world. Our being. By exercise, uh, whatever is there, qualities of sound, qualities of sight, qualities of smell, qualities of taste, qualities of touch, these much we get. And what about the idea of substance by any of these senses or all the senses together? Therefore, Berkeley is an anti-materialist or immaterialist. This is a better designation to call Berkeley. Immaterialist is a better designation than idealist. And if you wish to call him something in terms of idea because he is advocating that ideas are only there, you better call him an ideaist. IDE small I. IDEA hyphen IST. That is the difference. So I wanted to say that when you are reading a book, what you perceive immediately are the letters A to Z or the punctuation marks, dot, comma, etc., etc. But the um, God, virtue, truth, which you get by reading the book, now we are reading this book and we are getting the ideas of matter, world, arbitrary connection. These are the ideas, but these ideas we do not have by sensory perception, by direct perception. It is only by indirect perception. So Philono says, it seems then that by sensible things you mean only those that can be perceived immediately by sense. Right, Ella says. Philonos, doesn't it follow from this that when I see one part of the sky red and another part blue, and I infer from this that there must be some cause for that difference of colors? That cause cannot be said to be sensible things or perceived by eyesight. So the idea of cause is not perceived by eyesight. What is perceived are colors only. Hylas agrees. Oh, yes, it does. Philonos. Similarly, when I hear a variety of sounds, I cannot be said to hear their causes. You cannot, Hylas says. Philonos. And when by touch I feel a thing to be hot and heavy, when by touch I feel a thing to be hot and heavy, I cannot say with any truth or correctness that I feel the cause of its heat or weight. So those who advocate that there is material substance in the world, they advocate the existence of material substance as the cause of the sensible qualities that come to us through the senses. So the material substance causes the perception of light, sound, touch, smell, etc. So Berkeley's argument is that we do not have sensible experience of the so-called cause. Hylas. To head of any more questions of this kind, I tell you once and for all that by sensible things I mean only things that are perceived by sense, and that the senses perceive only what they perceive immediately. because they do not make inferences. The senses do not make inferences. Mark the words. Unless you mark these words carefully, you will not be able to follow what is going on the transactions. The senses do not infer. What do the senses do? They only perceive. What infers? Then inference is there, but which thing that infers? The mind infers, not the senses. So you see certain things and infer some certain other things. If you have read neo philosophy, there is a distinction between uh, indeterminate perception and determinate perception. Indeterminate perception is you see some color, you see some hardness, and you infer, determine that it is an apple. So it is like that. Mind infers, senses perceive, senses do not infer. Philono said, we agree then that sensible things include only things that are immediately perceived by sense. Now tell me whether we immediately perceive by sight anything besides light, color, and shapes, by hearing anything except sounds, by the palate means tongue, anything besides tastes, by the sense of smell, anything besides colors, sorry, odors, gandha, by touch, anything more than tangible qualities. Hyla says, we do not. Philono says, so it seems that you take away all sensible qualities. If you take away all sensible qualities, there is nothing left that is sensible. I agree. Philonos, sensible things then are nothing but so many sensible qualities or combinations of sensible qualities. Yes, nothing else. Philonos, so heat is a sensible thing, certainly. Does the reality of sensible things consist in being perceived? Or is it something different from their being perceived, something that does not involve the mind? Alas, to exist is one thing and to be perceived is another thing. Philonos, I am talking only about sensible things. My question is, by the real existence of one of them, do you mean an existence exterior to the mind and distinct from their being perceived? Hylas, I mean a real absolute existence distinct from and having no relation to their being perceived. Hylas is intent upon admitting that there is something which is besides and beyond and beneath what we perceive by the senses. Philonos. So if it is granted to have a real existence, it must exist outside the mind. Hylas, yes, it must. Tell me, Hylas, is this real existence equally possible for all degrees of it that we feel, or is there a reason why we should attribute it to some degrees of it and not to others? If there is, please tell me what it is. Hylas replies, whatever degree of heat we perceive by sense, we can be sure, we can be sure exists also in the object that occasions it. What the greatest as well as the least? Yes, because the same person holds for both. They are both perceived by sense. Indeed, the greater degree of heat is more intensely sensibly perceived. So, if there is any difference, it is that we are more certain of the real existence of a greater heat than we can be of the reality of a lesser. Philonos says, but is not the most fierce and intense degree of heat a very great pain? No, one can deny that. And can any unperceiving thing have pain or pleasure? Certainly not. Is your material substance a senseless thing, or does it have sense and perception? It is senseless without doubt, so it cannot be the subject of pain. Indeed, it cannot. So, in this way, the argument goes on between Hylas and Philonos. I have only gone through a few sample arguments. The book consists of 65 pages. There are three dialogues, as I said: first dialogue, second dialogue, and third dialogue. So, in this way, when we do research, we go through them very carefully and tidbit, so that we are able to make subtle differences which we miss on the first reading. So on the second reading, third reading, we become more acquainted with the exact concept, with the exact distinctions that are made in the arguments of a philosopher. We will now tell you certain things about thesis and assignment writing. You please write down the name of one book. You might not get to download it, but you might get to read it in the archives. The name of the book is Thesis and Assignment Writing. THESIS, thesis, and assignment ASSIGNMENT, assignment writing. That is by three authors: Jonathan Anderson, JANATHAN, Jonathan Anderson, ANDERSON, Jonathan Anderson. Second author is Berry, 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 H. Durston, DURSTON, Berry H. Durston. Then third one is Millicent Poole, MILLICENT, Poole, POOLE, Poole. So Anderson, Durston, and Poole, their book Thesis and Assignment Writing is very good. Actually, I was consulting this book while writing my thesis 4 decades back. This was published by Willie Stern. Willie is the overseas publisher. Willie Stern is the Indian publisher. But now the book, then also the book was not available. But I wrote to the publisher that this book is very much wanted by the researchers here. Then they republished it and we purchased it. Myself and my friends purchased it. So Willie Stern Limited, New Delhi and Bangalore, the publication places of publication. But I don't think it is now available. So let it not be available in the market. We have the advantage of getting it in the internet, in the archives. Even if we are not able to download it, we can get it to read by borrowing. So borrow it for 1 hour, then if that 1 hour will not be sufficient, then borrow it for another 1 hour. And I understand that some books are borrowed for 14 days. If this is available for 14 days, then do that. Now, on Anderson, Durston, and Poole, they say like this. I will discuss you something which they say. The first thing is written assignments at the undergraduate level. Usually, their undergraduate courses are equal to our postgraduate courses. Written assignments at the undergraduate level usually require you to write on some set topic or to choose from a list of suggested topics. Occasionally, as the second and the third year level, You may be required to choose a topic in consultation with your tutor or lecturer. Whatever the case may be, your first task is to define and limit the problem. If you need my help at any time, you may contact me over telephone number I am giving you, 8249579548. 824-957-9548. So if you need any help at any time, you may contact me for planning your dissertation and writing it. And the first stage is defining the problem. How do you define the problem? Defining the problem involves determining what the question, assignment, or essay requires you to do. A book you should consult first is a good dictionary to make sure you know exactly what keywords mean. Some commonly encountered words and their different shades of meaning are listed below. Number one, analyze. Number one is analyze. Consider the various components of the whole and try to describe the interrelationships between them. We gave you a sample of Berkeley's three dialogues between Hylas and Philonos. Then number two, compare. Examine the characteristics of the objects in question with a view to demonstrating their similarities and their differences. As I was doing between the two things, ideaism and idealism. Then number three, contrast. Examine the characteristics of the objects in question for the purpose of demonstrating differences. Number four, define. Give a definition or state terms of reference. Number five, describe. Give an account of. Number six, discuss. Present the different aspects of a question or problem. Number seven, enumerate. Give a listing, as we are doing now. Number eight, evaluate. Examine the various sides of a question and try to reach a judgment. As Philonos was evaluating Hylas's views. Similarly. Then nine, examine critically. Act as a judge or critic. Then appraise. I was telling you that critical examination is taking no sides. So as if you were a judge of the parties that are presenting their views. Here, while you read three dialogues between Hylas and Philonos, you become a judge while doing research. If you at all choose to do research on Berkeley, you do not side Philonos, you do not side Hylas. Be a judge over and above Philonos and Hylas. Evaluate the views of both. If Hylas, as a materialist, has certain good points to offer, then accept those things. And if Philonos does have something which is not supportable, then leave out that, criticize that. Then prove, demonstrate, or show by logical arguments. Proving is not by showing certain facts or referring to certain facts. Proving in philosophy is proving by logical arguments. Then next one is summarize. Examine the main points briefly. That is how we begin. then we limit the problem. This point we hinted at in one other class. I said that if you choose to write on empiricism in general, or rationalism in general, or problems of philosophy in general, then uh, it might lead you astray. You might not be able to hit the target very well. So you have to limit the problem in order to achieve something, in order to tell something which you have thought with so much of labor. A common mistake with undergraduate assignment is to be too ambitious and to attempt topics that are far too broad. The mistake of casting the net wide is to is an understandable one, because a common reaction when starting an assignment is to wonder how one is possibly going to write the required number of words. Actually, uh, a beginner gets confused. He is not able to delimit his problem. He has read so much, or she has read so much, that he or she wants to keep everything in black and white, write down everything. But uh, if you read so much, then that is well and good. That nourishes your intellect. But whatever you have read, you cannot put them into the form of a thesis or assignment to fulfill the purpose. So you have to delimit your problem. However, once you start reading around the topic, you find the reverse problem. There is too much to write, hence it pays dividends to spread a few hours right at the start in limiting the problem. A problem is not limited by omitting important information. That is not limiting. Or leaving out essential details, or presenting only part of the evidence. Rather, a problem is limited by reducing the scope of the investigation. Consider, for example, the following topics. Number one, diseases. He gives an example from science. The diseases affecting wheat. Number two, the control of rust in wheat. Number three, recent development in the control of rust in wheat in the Darling Downs region. So that is a scientific example from science. Um, Let us confine to philosophy. Suppose I would prefer the area for rationalism. Instead of writing an assignment on rationalism, I would limit it to Descartes, rationalism of Descartes. Or still to limit it, we would choose the problem of body-mind relationship. Body-mind relationship of Descartes, a re-evaluation. Or the relation of body and mind, colon, a critical study of Descartes in the light of contemporary views. So Daniel Dennett, etc., they have done much research on body-mind relationship problem. So in the light of that, we may go back to Descartes for a re-evaluation of his views on the topic. So you can delimit our topic in that way. Then is time schedule that you know. You have to submit the whole thing within a specified date. Then consulting source materials, that is important. A suggested list while preparing while setting upon the topic, you have to search for the materials that you may search for collecting materials and writing the assignment. So a suggested list of references is often included with set assignments. This is a valuable starting point, and these references should be consulted first. There, it is given there in their universities, but IGNOU doesn't supply that. You have to find out your own references by inquiring a teacher or by going to the net. Going to the net simply will not be very much helpful. Consult somebody, the teachers that you have been in contact. You ask for this reference material that you may read, articles and books that you may read to write the assignment. Then another important thing, after consulting the source material, prepare a working bibliography. Bibliography means a list of books and articles. How to prepare that? A bibliography for a written assignment is an alphabetic list of all source material to which reference has been made. There are different ways of referring books, journal articles, and other documents, and these are dealt with in detail in another chapter of this book. How to write? Number 1, author's surname and initials, like Das GP. Then number 2, the name of the article and or journal or book. Number 3, the imprint, place of publication, publisher, and date of publication. These are the imprint. Then you prepare an outline. What is that outline? There are many forms that your outline might take, and certain departments might specify particular formats. You should be familiar with departmental requirements. The following is a suggested outline which you might find useful. First, introduction. Give a clear statement of the problem. Define your terms and indicate the limits of the study. Set the problem within a meaningful background. This may take several forms. The setting up the study may be described. Previous research may be reviewed. Literature review. Previous research may be reviewed. The time dimension may be indicated. The introduction should provide the reader with all the necessary information for what is to follow. Try to keep this section crisp and informative. That is the introduction part. Then the body. I told you that you must have one introduction and one conclusion, and in between 2 chapters or 3 chapters will do. So altogether, if it consists of 4 chapters, one would be introduction, the last one will be conclusion, and in between there will be 2 chapters consisting the body. 2 chapters or 3 chapters would constitute the body. This section should be a logical development of an argument or a particular point of view. It should be an attempt at a progressive solution to the problem stated in the introduction. The headings used in your card notes may prove suitable as points to be developed into one or more paragraphs. Endeavor to keep this section moving. Do not get lost in irrelevant detail and padding. Suppose you are writing on Descartes. Don't waste your time in writing about his biography. That is not required. So always be straight and be direct in approaching the problem. Then the last one would be conclusion. This section presents the findings of the study, the solution or the approach to the problem initially stated. This was my problem. I divided the problematic into so many chapters. In chapter 1, I discussed such and such things and found such and such things. In chapter 2, I discussed such and such things and found such and such things. Then in the conclusion, we will say that these are the things that was the topic of my research. But then there are other sides which are like this and this. This should constitute the study or another dissertation. I may do it or somebody else may do it. So then you will prepare the first draft, read the whole thing yourself, and while you go through the entire thing authored by you, you will yourself find many faults. Then set them right, and if possible, take it to some knowledgeable person in English department to check your English first. Then approach the subject expert. If you are acquainted to one, then ask him to check the whole thing. If he or she gives some suggestions, then modify it accordingly and submit. Follow? Numbers.
Yes, sir.
Only 2% are left now, Omyakanta and Oberis.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So I am not looking at the screen of the mobile because I would get disheartened because 2% are there only in the classroom. So some other things that I want to convey. There are very practical advices also like this. Practical advices are, it takes time and a lot of effort to first find a topic area, then narrow it down until there are testable questions that can be feasibly answered. Therefore, students need to begin early. Very practical advices are there. Then it is said, organize their lives accordingly. So your lifestyle should also be required to be regulated. 20 hours a week would be a minimum and 40-50 more reasonable for reading and writing. So this is of course for writing a thesis, but you are writing an assignment. Still then commitment is necessary. You must you must think about the topic so that some ideas will dawn upon you, new ideas, fresh ideas. It is advised that a supervisor will answer questions on the fine points and on difficult examples, but you will not expect to explain the basics. Basics you will have to master yourself. No supervisor expects to tell students what to do. Research is not following a recipe, it is finding out something new and writing about it in context and mastering the genre and the language of the thesis. Achha. The MA thesis writing process is not one where a student follows the directions of the supervisor. There is no supervisor here. Rather, it is an apprenticeship. The training involves growing in maturity in independent thinking, maturity in independent thinking, maturity in responsibility and decision making, in particular, to decide on the topic for study, to decide what goes into the literature review, to decide what data to collect and how to collect it, to decide uh, in particular to collect and analyze the data, to show how the data answers the questions or tests the hypothesis and relate this to other published work, theories, and arguments, learning the genre of the thesis with its conventions, writing a thesis clearly, accurately, with a coherent argument. So these are the general ideas within which a thesis is designed and the product is obtained. Then there is no supervisor, so those things are irrelevant. There are three types of research. One is exploratory research. Exploratory. A new problem, a new issue, a new topic about which little is known. Suppose National Education Policy 2020. This is very new, this is very much new, and nothing is, or very little is known about it. If somebody chooses to write a dissertation on NEP 2020 colon teaching of philosophy, there are certain things in the policy about the teaching of philosophy. So if one highlights that, that will be a thesis on meta philosophy as we find it in National Education Policy 2020. So exploratory research. In this case, it is difficult to have precise ideas at the beginning. An example of this would be like this, as I said, NEP 2020. The whole field is wide open. There has been almost no research done at all. Adults, when they set out to learn a new subject, especially one that is heavily language dependent, have special methods and attitudes. That is exploratory research. Then testing out research. This means taking an existing generalization or result or piece of research and seeing if it is valid in other circumstances. Simply by changing one of the variables and repeating the work is sufficient for an MA. In philosophy, you can do this. Analytic philosophy we have been talking about. If we can apply the analytical techniques to understand a traditional philosophical problem, say in Western philosophy or in Indian philosophy, then it will be like testing out research to put to reread, to reinterpret, or to reevaluate the traditional philosophical problems in the light of new techniques in philosophy. Then problem solving research. In this type of research, a real problem from the real world is defined and a solution is sought. Like this, one post was there in the Facebook today, that is the talk about God, soul in our traditional philosophy. He said that does it hinder our social political growth in India? So all these philosophical ideas about Brahman, about Atman, uh, do they cast a negative influence on our social development? So this is problem solving research. We have to find out what they are and what you call progress in modern times, and are those ideas actually helpful or repugnant to your idea of development? Do they help your thing, or do they apply break on your thing? So this is something to keep in mind while beginning the project. We have, I have a literature written by a very experienced philosopher, that is T.M.P. Mahadevan. T.M.P. Mahadevan of Madras University, professor of philosophy. He has certain things to offer because he has very wide experience in guiding research thesis. He says like this: you will not get this material anywhere. That was meant for private circulation. So please listen to. I am giving you the samples of his instructions. Choosing a subject. The term research implies intensive investigation. Hence, the subject chosen should necessarily be well defined and limited in area. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Acha.
Yes, sir.
A phone call came and that disturbed the whole thing. ठीक. Acha. Hence, the subject chosen should necessarily be well defined and limited in area. Themes of wide scope will render investigation diffuse and shallow. A research thesis is expected to make some original contribution to knowledge. Originality may express itself either in the discovery of new facts or in the discovery of new relations between facts. In the exact sciences, it is largely a case of discovering new facts, while in all humanistic studies, it shows itself in the discovery of new relations between facts. An original theory must not be in the nature of an irresponsible airing of views. A research thesis must stand clearly above the level of popular opinion. One's conclusions must be based on facts and must necessarily follow from them by force of reasoning. In philosophy, to get at the facts, what do we call facts in philosophy? We do not go to the field to collect what facts are. In philosophy, to get at the facts as they are, that is the basic material divested of other people's opinions, it is imperative to study the original sources themselves. As I read before you and interpreted it, that was the text of Berkeley's Three Dialogues Between Hylas and Philonos. The study of the original sources presupposes a knowledge of the language in which they are written. I was reading Berkeley's book, and Berkeley's book was written in 1734, I said. So the English in the 18th century is not the same as we have in the 21st century. The study of the original sources presupposes a knowledge of the language in which they are written. Hence, for a research worker in any field of Indian philosophy, it is necessary to acquire proficiency in Sanskrit or any of the other languages like Tamil, because he belongs to South, says Tamil. Suppose we are doing research in Buddhist philosophy, we must be acquainted with Pali. So if we are working on Indian philosophy, we must be acquainted with Sanskrit. And the Sanskrit, for being acquainted with Sanskrit, you need not be a Pandit in Sanskrit. You must have a working knowledge of Sanskrit only. What to write in a thesis depends on its theme. Our present concern is with how a thesis should be written. The following points about thesis writing have to be carefully attended to. Please carefully attend to it. Language. Felicitous language is a mark of genius. Everybody cannot write felicitous language. We attribute it to Radhakrishnan. Radhakrishnan writes a very flowery language, very felicitous language. And you know, uh, Bertrand Russell and Sartre, they were awarded the Nobel Prize, not for philosophy, but for writing philosophy in felicitous language. So they got Nobel Prize for literature. They were and literature doesn't mean they were writing novels, they were writing poems, they were writing stories. No, they were writing philosophical literature, and the philosophical literature were presented in such a good linguistic style that they got the Nobel Prize. So felicitous language is a mark of genius, but the language of a thesis must at least be readable. Even a thesis that is good in content would produce a bad impression on an examiner if it were written in a language that is clumsy. So long as English continues to be the medium of reporting research findings in our country, the student must have a good grounding in the principles of English composition. So I many times advise my students to read the grammar of English first. I suggest them to read Ren and Martin's grammar so that they have a uh, good command over composition of sentences. Uh, the following books are recommended for constant use by the thesis writer. Professor Mahadevan says that a researcher must consult these books: A Dictionary of Modern English Usage by H.W. Fowler. Number two, an ABC of English Usage by H.A. Treble and G.H. Valens. So he has recommended these two books. In general, avoid solecism. What is that? That is impropriety or irregularity in grammar, idiom, or manners. Avoid spelling errors, involved sentences, involved complex sentences. Nowadays, complex sentences are not very much liked, but Radhakrishnan, etc., they were writing very complex sentences, but then they were intelligible, well intelligible. So avoid those things. And my advice is to write sentences like this: the cat is on the mat, the rat is on the vat. This should be the ideal. So not exactly three-worded sentences, but as simple as these. Avoid spelling errors, involved sentences, and the excessive use of capitals, capital letters. Indian philosopher, I is capital, P is capital. But while writing Indian philosopher, I must be capital, not P. P need not be philosopher, philosophy. This P need not be in capital letters. And avoid also italics. I told you that the name of the books, the name of the journal, that should be in capital, I mean italics. And if there are words of any language other than English, that has to be in italics. Like, say, what is that? Purusartha. Purusartha is a Sanskrit word. So if we mention that, we have to have it in italics. Purusartha. Guna, Dravya, Padartha, like this. Avoid pleonasm. Pleonasm means that the words which are not required. ଯେମିତି ଓଡ଼ିଆରେ ଜଣେ କହିଥିଲେ ଥରେ, ମୋ ନିଜ ପୁଅ, ମୋ ପୁଅ is sufficient. My own son, my son is sufficient. My own son, what does it mean? The own, OWN own, that is become that is redundant. That should be avoided. Double comparison, more prettier. Prettier is comparison, or more pretty, that is comparison. More prettier is double comparison. That should be avoided. These are common mistakes that Professor is pointing out. Then avoid the use of strong language and partisan and dogmatic tones. It is against etiquette and certainty. So while if you are doing research on tribal philosophy, for example, you must be very cautious in order not to put such language as would offend their culture and traditions. It should not be against etiquette, and certainly it is no substitute for sound argumentation. Allow your argument to lead to a conclusion. Punctuation needs special care. I have not told you about punctuation marks. Professor Mahadevan makes us conscious of that. Comma in enumerations, comma, e.g., e dot, g dot. E.g. means, for example, how does it use comma? Consciousness, comma, instinct, comma, memory, comma, and habit, full stop. Suppose I am saying to think is to perceive, comma, dream, comma, will, comma, wish, comma, understand, comma, like this. Comma is use of comma is like this. Books, comma, pamphlets, comma, and papers which have secured the approval, full stop. In the absolute construction, how nature, comma, being unlimited, comma, there is no limit to the skill which man can employ. Professor Mahadevan says, after nature, there should not be any comma. Nature being unlimited, comma, not nature, comma, being unlimited, comma. So he inserts that no comma should be after nature if the sentence is like this. Similarly, we write the accused, comma, having pleaded guilty, comma, the hearing of evidence commenced. This is not correct. No comma after accused. The accused having pleaded guilty, comma, the hearing of evidence commenced, like this. So these are very small but very important points. Serious students should guard against faulty grammar and faulty punctuation, both. Then this is the guiding comma. Then about semicolon. The use of semicolons in the place of commas, or even where commas are not called for, is wrong. The semicolon is the 3/4 stop, ranking that is between the full stop and the comma. It is more than comma and less than full stop. Colon, how do we use colon? It is at present a substitute for such verbal harbingers as bij, dot, comma, SCIL, dot, comma, IE, dot, comma, etc. Exclamations. Then question mark. Okay. Inverted commas should be used with cautious, because there are single inverted commas and double inverted commas. Where do you use double inverted commas? When a full sentence is there, double inverted comma. Part of the sentence, single inverted comma. Example is given here. The man who says, I shall write to the Times tonight. What to do now? The man who says, double quotation, I shall write to, single quotation, the Times, single quotation ends, tonight, double quotation ends, full stop, like this. So for full sentences, double quotation mark. For part of the sentence or one word, double single quotation. That is the standard use, but there are deviations. I find writers applying double quotation marks to words or part of sentences and single quotation marks to full sentences. But the standard use, full sentence, double quotation, part of the sentence, single quotation. This is something. Okay. Then regarding references, we discussed. You Amrish asked me the other day about the different styles, citation styles. Is not it?
Yes, sir.
There is one APA style.
Yeah.
APA style. APA
Mm.
style we now adopt. As I told you, while we were writing our thesis, we were adopting the British style, but now the American style is in vogue. APA means American Psychological Association. They have a style of citation. We follow that like this. Let me find out some example. If you are citing a work, what do we do? First of all, author's last name, then comma, author's first name, full stop, then title of the book, full stop, then publisher, comma, year published, full stop, then title of website or database, if any, comma, URL, full stop. Example, Austen, comma, Jane, Jane, comma, and Set, ACTH, Set, Graham, Smith, full stop. So name of the author, author's last name, comma, then first name, full stop. We did that. Jane Austen Jane and Set Graham Smith, full stop. Then the title of the book, like this: Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. Name of the book, Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. Then full stop. Then book publisher. Book publisher is here Quark, QUIRK, the publisher, comma. Then the year published 2015, full stop. Then if you find it in the website, write Google Books, comma, then the URL books, Google, com, books, etc., full stop. So you have to do like this, like that. If you are citing a work, how do we do in-text citation? Within in-text means within the text, we have to cite while giving quotation or referring to somebody. According to Descartes, for example, according to Descartes, you have to give the citation there, then and there. How to do that? First names or last names. First name is Descartes Rene, R-E-N-E, or last name Descartes. How to like example? Let's take Austen and Graham Smith, or Austen and Graham Smith, Austen and Graham Smith, or Austen and Graham Smith. That is in-text citation. So it is not possible to see how exactly this is without a blackboard. Then if you are citing a work, how do you do that? Citing a translated or edited book, author's name, last name, comma, first name, full stop, title of the book, full stop, then translated by or edited by, first name, last name, comma, publisher, comma, year published, full stop. Like this, Kramani, comma, Haruki, full stop. A Wild Sheep Chase, name of the book, full stop. Translated by Alfred Bimbam, comma, Vintage Books, comma, 2015. Like this. So, in this way, we do it in APA style. There are other styles. IEE style, another style is there. That is as a mechanical engineer, you must be knowing that style. I do not know. That is the Institute for Electrical and Electronics Engineers. IEEE. It's a professional organization. They have their own styles of writing assignments in engineering. We are not concerned with that. Another style is there, which we are also following, that is Chicago style. And that style belongs to the 20th century, began in 1906. Chicago style. Some journals are also following that Chicago style of citation. In the Chicago style, what happens? Like this. Michael Pollan, name of the author, Michael Pollan, not Pollan Michael. Michael Pollan, comma, The Omnivore's Dilemma, colon, A Natural History of 4 Meals, name of the book that is. Then within bracket, New York, colon, Penguin, name of the publisher, comma, 2006. Bracket ends, comma, page 99 to 100, like this. So that is Chicago style, which most of the journals and books they follow, but we are following APA style by and large. Another style is the Turabian style. Then another style is the Harvard referring style. So altogether we have these 4 styles, and we are very much comfortable with the APA style. So try to do that way. And I have already told you the name of the book for consultation with regard to citation and format, etc. What is that? If you have not written that, then
This
uh,
by thesis
sorry,
assignment writing, this one by
अरे
Jonathan
भाई,
and
not it. Jonathan Anderson, then
Millicent.
Barry H. Durston, and Millicent Pule.
Yeah.
This is available in archives for borrowing. For
How
borrowing.
to access archives?
Uh, what is that archive? Mm, tell him. Just a minute. I would have liked to listen to students their choice, but it could not be. What to do? So, if possible, they will consult me.
Yeah. What time would be suitable to call you, sir?
You call at any time. If I am free, then I am
Yeah.
at home.
Okay.
Unless otherwise I am busy.
Okay.
On the what is that archive? Where did it go? I saw it the other day. This is an assignment writing.
Is it this archive.org, this website?
Which
Is it a public website, not specifically IGNOU's website? Is it?
no, yes, public website. Yes, public website.
So archive is archive.org, this website.
Perhaps, let me see.
Okay.
Let me see. Archive. Previously, JED library, etc., they were providing material, but now that is not available. They depended upon the funding by willing bodies, but perhaps funding was not available. That is closed. Archive.org you said, na?
Yeah.
Oh yes. Oh, that is Internet Archive. Oh, that Internet Archive. Name of the archive is Internet Archive. So I hope that by now you have some idea as to how to choose a topic, collect study material, make notes. We were advised to make notes on one side of the notebook, because when we read fresh material, we have some quotations or some points regarding a particular topic or particular point. So without writing those things here and there, we'll open that page. On the flip side of it, we write those things, so that on a particular point, we get all the things in one page or two pages. So make notes and then make a rough draft as to which things will follow which things, then have a working draft. Then finally you read it. You keep it in the fridge for 1 week or nearly so that that will remain there and you will go on thinking. So open after 1 week and revisit your own writing. You will find that many things need to be omitted and certain other things to be added, so that you will get a full-fledged thing and a good thing for submission. Hope you will do it with aplomb, with much clarity and all that, and get due credit from IGNOU for your labor. So may we finish it here with the hope that I will get the feedback later on from you. Those who are interested may give the feedback or may need my help. I am always at your service. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Namaskar. Goodbye.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Amyakant, can we share numbers?
Yes, yes. Hello.
Yeah.
My number is 7077
7077
0272
Hmm.
62.
Okay. 7077027262.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I will now message you on WhatsApp.
Yes.
Thank you.